What is going on, Sweepers? Welcome back to another episode of Sweep Blue Grand Final Edition. Let's get into it. So this episode is going to just be a quick one, really just talking about a bit of the Grand Final heartbreak going into the Grand Final, Taylor Adams and Dan McStay, and what I sort of think about positional changes and stuff like that. And yeah, get your thoughts and let's get into it. So as we know, a couple of weeks ago, Taylor Adams injured his hamstring at training. They're saying that it wasn't even a grade 1 tear. It was like a, 0.5, 0.7 sort of tear. And it wasn't, strain, not tear. Definitely wasn't a tear. It wasn't a really bad strain. Sort of precautionary. He couldn't do a lot of running. And then he started to build up. Obviously missed the GWS match. But there was talks that if we could make the grand final, he would play in it. And it would be a sort of touch and go, and he'd probably get to the last session and they would call it to see if he would play it or not. But as of today, which is the Tuesday, 26th of September, the players had an open training session. Taylor Adams lasted about 10 minutes before he left the ground, went straight inside, and we didn't see him again. A few hours later, so in the afternoon, Graham Wright, Collingwood, came out and ruled Taylor out of the grand final because he had re-injured, or he had hamstring awareness, or whatever that sort of means, if he re-injured it or strained it. But it definitely, hamstring awareness definitely would mean that he has redone something to that hamstring, which, is really, really heartbreaking, really sad. Taylor Adams is sort of that, he's the black and white guy, he's the side-by-side guy. He's the guy that you would, like kind of like a Brazzy Maynard, where he would pull you up by the scruff of your neck if you were on the floor and lead you to sort of victory. You'd run through a wall for this sort of guy. Vice captain of the club as well. And if anyone sort of deserves a grand final berth, it's him. Last year he tore his groin muscle off the bone against Geelong in that first final. Doesn't play the Fremantle game, doesn't play the Sydney game. 2018 he has that heartbreak as well. So, it's just, my heart goes out to him. Man, every sort of year a grand final heartbreak happens, right? And I thought, okay, cool. Dan McStay heartbreak, that absolutely sucks. There's our heartbreak, right? There's our heartbreak. It happened again in less than a week. We have another player ruled out for the grand final. So that is not two changes. Definitely Dan McStay is a change, obviously. But Taylor Adams doesn't come back into the side like we thought he would. And now we have two more reasons to go out there and absolutely smash the Lions on Saturday. So what does that mean for us and positional changes and stuff like that, though? Well, at open training today, they played Billy Frampton a lot in the forward line. So could we see Billy Frampton come in for Dan McStay? I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. They're not like for like. Dan McStay is, since he returned in round 18, he's been averaging 1.8 or close to 2 goals a game. There was one game where he kicked 1 goal, but since that round 18 game, he's pretty much kicked 2 goals in every single game. We wouldn't be in this position that we are in now, in this grand final, without Dan McStay's efforts against Melbourne, without his efforts last week against the Giants. Now, Billy Frampton is your sort of Leroy Brown, if you will. And we know what happened the last time we had Leroy Brown in the Collingwood team, right? I like Billy Frampton as an inclusion if it happens, because he can go down back if we need him, go into the ruck if we need him, and obviously he can stay forward. We have experimented with him forward earlier on in the season. He kicked a couple, I don't know if he kicked a couple of goals. He definitely kicked a goal on Anzac Day that sort of spurred us on and got us going. He's kicked a couple of those sort of goals throughout the year. He takes a really good mark. I definitely probably wouldn't put him in the back line if he does come in. I think we're pretty settled in the back line, unless they want to chuck Howe up forward, which I don't think they will, unless you sort of want to negate what Harris Andrews does. So put him as a defensive forward. But bringing in Billy Frampton to play on, or to sort of stretch Brisbane's back line would be, I think, a really good idea. Big man, help Brody Myercheck out, who, we recruited Dan McStay to help Myercheck out, and now we don't have Dan McStay in the biggest game of the year. So that sucks, right? The other sort of thing to look at is, do we bring in Ginnivan into the 22 straight away, and not sort of replaced Dan McStay yet. We replace him with sort of a Ginnivan, then put someone else on the bench, maybe a Frampton on the bench if we need to go taller or whatever it may be, and go smaller in our forward line where, you know, how it was last year and how it was sort of the last couple of years, where it is Mychek as the sort of central piece, Cox can float in, Darcy Cameron can float in if we want them to. Then we have Elliott, Bo, Bobby, and Ginnivan all at the feet of those guys, because we know Mychek isn't going to clunk every single one of them, because he's just one guy and he's going to always get the best defender now. So do we go smaller, try and get them with leg speed? There's a lot to think about. I think, personally, I wouldn't be making too many changes for the grand final. I would love to see Ginnivan start, but I would also love to see Billy Frampton play. Imagine the storyline of Billy Frampton being a premiership player would be incredible. But, you know, that's what we sort of have to weigh up. Do we go like for like, or like for like, as in big key forward for a big sort of player? Or do we go smaller and let that sort of defensive forward pressure, or forward attacking sort of pressure, you know, forward tackles and stuff like that? Do we let that dictate how we play this game? So I hate to be on the selection committee, but I don't see us dropping anyone else. Even if Taylor Adams did come into the side, having to drop someone would have just been as heartbreaking as losing Taylor Adams that we did today. So I don't see us making more than that one change, which is Dan McStay coming out, obviously, and Billy Frampton or Jack Ginnivan coming into the team. But then who do you have as a sub if Jack Ginnivan comes into the team? Do you have a Noble? Is it Noble's time to come back in, or is it a Finlay Macrae? Is it an in and under, someone that you want? Remember that when Finlay Macrae came on in the Essendon game, he played, a quarter, I think, and he had 5 or 8 tackles or something like that, something ridiculous, where, you know, he applied a lot of pressure, and we know that Brisbane, that's how they beat Carlton, with their sort of pressure, heaps of pressure, their centre clearances, their clearances just in general, in and under. So do you need that in and under player in your back pocket? Those are the questions that, and probably 1,000 more, that Fly is sort of looking at, and flying the coaches and stuff like that, because we have, you know, lost to Brisbane the last 6 times. We haven't, the last time we beat Brisbane was 2017 at the MCG. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the preview. But those are just my thoughts on, you know, the Taylor Adams situation, what kind of happens with selection. Let me know your thoughts down below, because as always, I love to read them. I love to hear your thoughts, and you know, you guys have more ideas than I do, so leave them all down below. Also, tomorrow I've got another video coming out with storylines in this grand final, and, like, you know, 20 years from 2003 and all this sort of stuff. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double checkers. I'll see you later.